We're going to turn now to the World Economic Forum in the Swiss Alps. The gathering brings together political and business leaders from around the world. Our business editor, Stephen Carroll, is there for us. Stephen, people there reacting to the death of King Abdullah.
Yeah, that's right. The main question here in Davos is what effect this might have on the oil markets. We've seen the price of oil rise by around 1.5% since that news of the Saudi Arabian king's death overnight. We've been speaking this morning to Martin Sorrell, who's the chief executive of WPP, the world's biggest advertising company by revenues. He is among those here in Davos saying that this could create further uncertainty over oil prices, whether or not Saudi Arabia will continue with its policy of keeping production at its current levels. Of course, they were one of the main proponents behind that decision by the OPEC group of oil-producing nations at their meeting in November. Now, plenty of events continuing here at the World Economic Forum. Later, we're going to be hearing from the French president in a few hours' time. He's addressing the forum here on a number of different issues, climate change among them, of course, ahead of the Paris conference on climate change later this year. He's also going to be speaking about global governance, of course, in the wake of the recent attacks on Paris. He's going to be discussing terrorism and the global cooperation in the fight against terrorism, and we're also going to be hearing from him about the economy. This is, of course, in the wake of the IMF cutting global growth forecast. He's going to be speaking about the French government's efforts to try to improve the situation for the economy. That speech by François Hollande going to be followed by a meeting with some 20 business leaders from around the world. They include Jack Ma from the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, heads of KPMG and Deloitte, and also the executive vice chairman of one of India's biggest IT services companies, Tech Mahindra. And I'm pleased to say that we have the chief executive of that company here with us in Davos this morning. CP Gurnani, thank you for speaking to us on France 24. A meeting with François Hollande later. What does your company have to say to the French president?
I think Tech Mahindra is one of the highly invested companies in France. We have a development center in Toulouse. We have leveraged French engineering skills to build products. We are one of the few companies which has now acquisition, which is a Geneva-based acquisition, but it is really for core banking solutions in France. And we also have a network services company. So all I can say is that Tech Mahindra is invested in France. We clearly need friendly policies. And currently, with the weakening of Europe, I do believe that we have an opportunity.
And on that, we've seen a lot of big currency changes in recent days. Obviously, in the wake of the European Central Bank's decision yesterday, the Swiss National Bank also made a decision that affected their currency quite significantly last week. How is that affecting your business?
The good news is that when you do business in 53 countries, somewhere the currency goes up, somewhere the currency goes down. The way I look at it is in a short term for Tech Mahindra, there will be an adversarial effect because I report my balance sheet in Indian rupees or in US dollars. So clearly, there will be an impact on my balance sheet. But if I look at it in a long run, as I said, I'm invested in France, I'm invested in Europe, I have 8 development centers in Europe. That my cost of delivery, cost of engineering, cost of being able to give cutting-edge solutions has reduced. And that, I think, makes me more competitive in Europe, makes Europe more competitive for the rest of the world.
Let's talk now about India. When we spoke to your executive vice chairman last year, he said that India needed business leadership after the elections. Did you get that with Narendra Modi?
I do believe that Prime Minister Modi means business. He means business is good for India. And he is very, very clear is that unless he addresses the growth agenda, he cannot create sufficient funds and momentum to create an agenda for the world that needs money.
What sort of measures need to be taken in India now?
I believe that there are about $300 billion of investments that are stuck up in infrastructure projects, either because there's no coal or we don't have the land rights. All of them are being addressed, but faster we do it, I think it will help, because that $300 billion coming into economy, I think will be the real impetus.
Is inflation a concern for you?
I do believe that India has learned to live with inflation. Unless it goes beyond a certain parameter, I think we are all right. India Incorporated has done well by... Actually, the oil prices coming down has helped India because we were a net importer of oil.
You see it having that an overall effect on the Indian economy as well?
Oh, yes. I mean, the oil means impact on prices because it's whole supply chain. As I said, our infrastructure is seriously challenged. For 1.2 billion people, we don't have sufficient ports, sufficient airports, sufficient railway, sufficient roads, and we do need that infrastructure. And since we are a net import economy on oil, this is helping.
Okay, Stephen Gurnani, Chief Executive of Tech Mahindra, thank you for speaking to us this morning on France 24 from Davos. Just a quick look at the markets before we go. We've seen the Asian indices responding positively to the quantitative easing measures announced by the European Central Bank. The Nikkei, notably in Japan, rising by over 1%. Plenty more from Davos here throughout the day, but for now it's back to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Time now for Web News.